Welcome to Suffolk County Police Department's Active Shooter Overview and Basic Survival Strategies Seminar. I'm Detective Cliff Lent from their Homeland Security and Criminal Intelligence Bureau. I was asked to create this presentation in response to an increasing public demand for information about how to better prepare for the threat of an active shooter or other large-scale critical incident. I considered the content of this presentation from the perspective of what has worked in the past and what can I actually tell my family to help keep them safe. After studying more than 200 active shooter attacks, we have learned several key takeaways. Some of these takeaways are: quick, decisive action saves lives. We also know that shock alters and slows how people react. To overcome shock, we all need to be more personally invested in our safety plan. We can't wait to be told what to do, and we can no longer only rely on the police or security to keep us safe. Emergency personnel are helpful. They will respond. But it takes time. Time is something that survivors don't have to spare. We need to pre-consider what we would do. We need to be able to answer a few simple questions. What would I do here if there's an emergency? Where would I escape to? Where would I take shelter if I can't get out? And did I communicate this plan to the people around me? This presentation addresses these universal questions and is not site-specific. The survival strategies that we will discuss have proven to be effective in a variety of emergencies. But no single strategy can be guaranteed to work every time. People will need survival plays for their playbook. It will be up to you to choose a play or strategy to improve your chances. Before we discuss those strategies, let's define active shooter and break down some important data and statistics. Looking at what is the definition of an active shooter, everybody understands shooter, person with a gun. But it's also important to understand when we plan our emergency response and when we have a greater situational awareness when we go out into the world, is that we're not just dealing with the person with the gun. We really need to think about it in this universal picture of a person that is totally determined, has a lot of planning behind them, and brings multiple weapons to bear. The other thing about this that makes it different from any other crime that we normally consider is that the perpetrator has no realistic expectation of their own survival. They go into this mass casualty attack with the intent of either taking their own life or understanding that they probably will be killed in the commission of it. And that means that they're not always worried about the police that are on scene. They don't always care of whether or not you have security. Certainly they're preventative in nature and they're good to have. But these type of people don't necessarily care about it, making them a very dangerous animal. This slide has a lot of words on it, and I know that that's a PowerPoint faux pas. But what this is, and this is the last one that we'll see like this is a disclaimer from the police department. And what it says is that we cannot tell you one single thing that will ensure your survival. We just can't. What works in one situation, that saves lives in one situation, may not in another. What we hope to do today is give you plays for your playbook. Very basic, simplistic concepts of things that you can consider when you're in crisis under great levels of stress. We want to give you those options that you're going to have to make choices on. I cannot just say simply, do this one thing and ensure your safety. Our whole goal is to give you these options which will mitigate or reduce the loss of life or the people that are injured in these attacks. I mentioned we're going to give you some data today. Our data points come from three primary sources. One is the law enforcement community in general, where we're always communicating one jurisdiction with another. When there's an incident in Las Vegas or Orlando, we talk to those police departments to find out what worked, what didn't work, what are their recommendations moving forward. In addition to that, there were two studies conducted, one by the FBI, one by the NYPD, and they looked at first a 14-year period. They've subsequently expanded it to a 17-year period. But they looked at 220 active shooter incidents that took place here in the United States from 2000 to the end of 2016. As subsequent years' data comes in, they will keep adding to these reports. But I will share some of the key takeaways with you today. If you feel like the active shooter incidents in the United States are increasing, you would be correct. It's not just a feeling or the greater media exposure or coverage of these events. What the study showed is that in the first 8.5 years, the average rate of attack in the United States was 7.4. In the second 8.5 years of the study, that more than doubles to 18.4 attacks in the United States per year. If you can see the slide in the last 3 years, 2014, 15, and 16, it seemed to plateau at 20. Unfortunately, the data is in for year 2017. It was the worst year in the United States for active shooter incidents, where that number jumped to 30. We had the most people killed at 138, and we had the most people injured. So it was the worst year ever in the United States. The takeaway for me is we're not solving this anytime soon. This is not something that is going to go away. We're seeing it trend upward. We expect that to continue to some degree. But if this is going to be happening and we're not solving this situation, my notice or invitation to you is to get more involved in your workplace, understand what your emergency action plan is, and also be more aware when you travel out into the world to a mass gathering. And we've all been to a mass gathering, probably recently. Your movie theater, that's a mass gathering. Your house of worship at a special event, that's a mass gathering. Any concert that we'll ever go to, Madison Square Garden, anywhere in New York City, and even in our towns and villages when we have an outdoor event, those are mass gatherings. Some of the other data and takeaways were that 69% of the time they're over in 5 minutes or less. They begin very violently, typically without warning, and they tend to end very quickly. What that tells me is that you need to take some sort of action yourself. It's not just call 911 and be a witness or wait for the cavalry to get there. You have to take some life-saving measures. On average, one person is shot every 15 seconds. And that makes sense when we're talking about active shooters, because they choose, and it's a cold term, but they choose target-rich environments, places where they have easy access to victims. They are almost always trying to one-up the last one. They know that they can bring more attention to themselves or to their cause if they can increase the body or victim count in their attack. If they are rapidly moving through a crowded space, hitting multiple people, one at an average of every 15 seconds, anything that we can do to slow down the attacker, anything at all, even fractions of a second, matter when we act collectively. So if I'm in a room with an attacker and I'm able to shove them off balance before I escape, great. If I'm being chased or they're in the same space as me and I could flip over a table or chair behind me, fantastic. If I can get to a door and shut it behind me, great. And you think, well, that seems, basic or simple, but the idea is this. Every time they have to look down to move around a chair or a table that you've thrown up in their way, every time that they have to navigate their way through a door, that's a fraction of a second here, a fraction of a second there, a full second or two at the door, where they are not looking at a potential victim, where they are not effectively targeting somebody. And if we work collectively or as a group doing that, we're chewing up the clock, and just by doing that alone, we are saving somebody's life, whether it's our own or somebody in proximity to us. 60% of the time, active shooter incidents are ending prior to police arrival. Again, underscoring, you're going to have to do something if 60% of the time this is over before we get there. There is a significant other portion of this, though. About 8% of active shooter incidents in the last 2 years have been stopped by an unarmed member of the public. Somebody that saw an opportunity in an act of desperation, thought that they had no other way to escape or to evade the attacker, and they turned the tables on the attacker themselves. So almost 8% of the time in the last 2 years, an unarmed member of the public has brought this to a conclusion. And some of the recent ones, you could think of the Waffle House incident. Mr. James Shaw was unarmed. He was in that restaurant. The gunman came in with a semi-automatic rifle, was firing into the patrons, emptied the magazine of bullets that he had, went to take it out because it was empty, and went to go in a reload. Mr. Shaw saw that, realized he was not getting out of there. The gunman was between him and the door that he saw between him. Used a swinging door, struck the gunman, grabbed the burning hot barrel of the rifle, ripped it out of his hands, threw the gun away, and then physically threw the gunman out of the restaurant, saving not only his life, but all of the other people that weren't killed at that point in the restaurant. That can happen, and it has happened in other occurrences too. 96% of the time it's going to be a male attacker, and the average age is 35 years old when the attack is focused out in the world. When it's focused on a school or an educational setting, the average age drops significantly to the teen years, 15 to 19 years old, almost always because it's a former or current member of that school district. Other than that, there is no profile of an active shooter. If you have an idea of the type of person that's going to be an active shooter, you can just pretty much throw it out. What both studies have indicated in looking at those 220 occurrences is that the attacker tends to reflect the communities that they attack within. They tend not to travel far distances. They choose locations that they're familiar with. These will be members of the community. Almost always they are first-time killers. 98% of the time it's going to be one attacker. And that makes sense. It's hard to get somebody else to buy into a plan of mass homicide. You can think of a couple sensational occurrences, Columbine being one where it was two friends, San Bernardino where it was a husband and wife attacker. There was another incident in Texas where boyfriend-girlfriend type situation. Other than this, extremely rare. I use that, and what I tell audiences is this. It's important to understand that you're not always going to have all of the information in one of these situations. You're not going to always know exactly who or exactly what is going on. Hear me out on this. If you're in the room with the attacker, you're going to know exactly what's going on, and your main challenge is to overcome shock. But if you're in other parts of the area where you're still exposed to danger, you're going to have limited information. You're going to have confusing information or conflicting information. And your first sign of trouble might be people running in a way that they've never run before, or screaming in a way that you haven't seen before. So as this information is going on, you're not going to know exactly what's happening in the room with the attacker. And my point of all of this is this. If I know 98% of the time it is one person that I need to evade or blockade myself from, that's what I'm going to do at the quickest possible time. If I can simply determine a direction of the threat, I don't need to know exactly where or exactly who, but a general direction of the threat, that something is happening in this direction, I'm going to alert others. Something is going on the other side of the building. Everybody close the door, come with me into the next room. I want to get more information, but we need to move out of here in a safe and a quick way. I'm going to close this door. I need everybody to come with me or get out on your own. Right? Make a quick move away from whatever the threat is, because if we can avoid the one, 98% of the time that's a life-saving measure. It's also important for everybody to understand that these people are getting tactical guidance about how to be effective in what they do. It's available on the internet. It is not a secret. People that fantasize about these types of things know exactly where to go, and they're getting military-grade tactical guidance about how to be more effective in their killing. If they are doing that, my message to you is this. We need to rethink, in my workplace, am I totally aware of what my emergency process is? Do I know how to sound the alarm myself? I don't want to wait for security or somebody else to tell me. I want to know how to initiate the alarm. Does that mean I put out a PA call? Does that mean I call the front desk? Does that mean I pull the alarm? I want everybody to be fully proficient of what those mechanisms are in your workplaces. In addition to that, you'll want to know, where are my options to leave here? Not the one that I come in and out every day because we're all creatures of habit, but what are my A, B, and C options to evacuate out of here, so that if one door is taken away from me, I can say, don't worry, follow me, I know another way. Or if I can't get out, if I'm injured, or if I determine that the attacker is between me and my exit, where is the most appropriate place to take shelter? Not every shelter room or every room is created equal. Not every room has a locking door or an alternate way to get out. It's important that we know, in the places that we spend 8 hours a day, that we become kings and queen of our castle, and we know what door do I choose to take shelter in, so I don't make a panic decision and I don't put myself in greater harm's way. There's also an interesting statistic about locked doors that I'd like to share with everybody, and that is this. In those 220 active shooter incidents, not once has a solid locked door been broken down or breached by a gunman. Not once. Even if they've had a small window. And that's kind of, hard to understand in the fact that, all right, I just told you that most of these attackers are adult males, and they're armed with a firearm. Can they get through those doors? Absolutely they could. I could break down a door without my firearm. But you know what it takes? It takes time. Time that the attackers don't have. Time that they're not willing to give up, because they know in a few minutes law enforcement is going to be on them and returning gunfire in their direction. So when they get to a locked door, they have to make a choice. Is it worth my time to fight through this door? Do I know who's on the other side of this door? Do I know if anybody's on the other side of this door? It could be 1, it could be 20, it could be 0. To fight through this door, I have to turn my back on the public, subjecting me to jeopardy of being attacked from behind as I try to work my way through the door. So frequently what they'll do is they get to a locked door, they might spray bullets through it if they think people are behind it, they have wounded people on the other side, they have killed a very small percentage of people on the other side, but locked doors chew up their clock, and it is a very basic and significant survival strategy if you cannot get out, to get yourself behind a locked door and get away from that door itself. So that's important to understand, especially when we talk about lockout and lockdown procedures. I'd now like to introduce a video that was produced by the LA County Sheriffs. It's titled Surviving an Active Shooter, and it's available on YouTube.
A morning that began like any other turned tragic today when an employee opened fire on his supervisor and fellow coworkers.
Students, parents, teachers are asking why today, after a bloody rampage, plunged this campus into tragedy.
Details are just coming in, but we're being told that a heavily armed gunman opened fire this evening at the mall food court behind me. There's no official word on any casualties yet, but one eyewitness reported seeing at least 6 people shot.
Active shooter. A gunman or gunmen killing or attempting to kill people in a confined, populated area.
You gotta get some sleep. You're looking like a vampire.
You sleep. You ain't got no babies at home keeping you up.
What the hell? Ah, Sim again.
We've tried. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to let you go.
Active shooter killings are a tragic, unpredictable reality, and one that's becoming more common. Even though the number of active shooter events has been increasing, your odds of being involved in one are still very slim. But just like fire drills and earthquake preparedness, making a plan in advance can make all the difference.
Yeah, but lizards live in tanks. I mean, it's probably fine.
If you do find yourself in the middle of a senseless attack, the why doesn't matter.
Hey. Hey, buddy.
Hang on, something's happening.
What matters is surviving.
On average, 20 mass shootings take place in the U.S. every year.
Killers usually choose their victims at random. They look for easy targets. So the harder you are to see or to hit, the safer you are. When an attack starts, if you can find a way out of the location, do so.
Get out.
If you stay calm and think clearly, even in the middle of a life and death event, you improve your chances of making it out. Visualize your movements in advance.
What are we gonna do?
Look at me. I can get us out. Stay behind me. Stay down.
Use cover, something that will stop a bullet, and concealment, something that at least keeps you out of sight.
Attention South LA units, code 3 response needed regarding a 245 DSV 417. This will be at the Town Center shopping mall. Suspects wearing a face mask, possible body armor.
Use any available means to get out, including emergency exits or windows. Most restaurants and retail locations will also have exits in the back, through kitchens or stock rooms. Even in the best cases, police are minutes, not seconds away. You must take action to protect yourself.
Okay, everybody stay calm. It's probably just a drill.
No, go back, go back.
Oh my God, come here.
If you can help others without putting yourself in unnecessary danger,
It's gonna be okay.
do so.
It's gonna be okay. What's your name?
Lori.
Lori? It's gonna be okay.
If you can't move safely to an exit, get to a room or a confined area you can lock down. Then secure the location.
Secure your location.
Oh my God.
There's somebody shooting.
Everybody stay calm. Remember how we train. Everybody get in this corner, away from the windows. Get the emergency bag from my desk. Help her.
Drywall won't stop a bullet, but there are steps to take to stay safe. Lock or barricade the doors, turn off the lights, move away from any windows, and silence your cell phone.
The other door doesn't lock, move desks, or anything, just block it.
A modern emergency bag can include a first aid kit, gloves, emergency plans for the building,
245 GSV 417 is going to be at Alexandria College. Multiple victims down.
Law enforcement's first responsibility when entering an active shooter situation is to stop the suspect, not to render aid to the victims. Medical teams will enter the scene as soon as the suspect is no longer a threat or is confirmed in another location. Silence any cell phones and remain quiet. Do not alert the shooter to your presence.
Defend yourself.
If you cannot escape the location and you can't shelter in place, you may have to defend yourself as a last resort. Almost anything can be turned into an improvised weapon. Look for something that can disrupt the shooter's ability to see, breathe, or control their weapon. When law enforcement arrives, they are going to be in a heightened state of readiness and awareness, looking for any aggressive movements. So keep your hands visible and follow any commands you are given.
He's a shooter.
What happened?
Oh, it was just a shooter. I just saw one shooter.
Especially in developing situations, engaging law enforcement, running toward them, reaching for them, even to thank them, could put people at risk.
In it. I do recommend that you go back and re-watch it another time. Suffolk County, or our county, uses this as a training tool for all employees, not for how to respond as a police officer to an incident like this, but to again plant those survival strategies into our minds about things and options for us to do and ways to be thinking. The main takeaways is that you have to act. And to act, you're going to need a plan. So we're going to talk more about this. We're going to unpack this video a little bit, and we'll get into those details about what our plans might look like and what they might be. Before we do, I do want to take just a second, because the video does not talk about the effects of stress and shock. And originally, in the beginning of the video, they say, try to remain calm and make good decisions. Very hard to do that when we're under these conditions, and I'm going to show you a video that illustrates that. But before we do, I want to talk about it. How do we train to overcome shock? Most of us don't think about it. Most of us don't have jobs that where we might have to respond to that on a regular occurrence. So we look at the police department, we look at the fire department and the United States military. How do we train people to go into dangerous situations where there is a sensory overload? A couple of things. Number one, they have to go into the event with a survivor's mindset. You have to believe that you're going to live no matter what it is that we're facing. And this applies to any emergency. Again, if I'm in a car accident and you think you're going to die, your body will relax. And if you have an extremity wound where you're bleeding from it, you'll bleed out more quickly because you don't have a survivor's mindset. If you go into a dangerous situation and you think you're going to die, again, you relax and your chances of dying actually increase pretty dramatically. Conversely, if you believe you're going to live, if you're going to fight to your last breath, if you recognize that this is a terrible or bad situation, but I am going to fight to my very last breath, your body will undergo physiological changes that are scientifically proven. You'll get an adrenaline dump. You'll have increased speed and strength that you weren't normally aware of. You'll have your pain receptors be shut down in large part, not totally, but to a large degree. That means that you can be wounded and you'll still be able to operate in that environment because your pain receptors have shut down. But it doesn't just end there. What we also need, all right, I've got my will to live, and we do recognize that not everybody is going to live. Every police officer knows that but we go into the day with the belief that we're going to. So I combine that belief with a basic plan of action. That's what's going to help jumpstart our brain to get out of shock, to take action, to not freeze in place. And we'll look at some videos of times and places where people didn't have that, didn't have a simplistic plan of action, and didn't respond the way they thought to, the way they thought that they would. So this video is pretty graphic. It's graphic in an audible way, not in a visual way. This is survivor cell phone footage from Parkland, Florida. 2 different segments, both recorded by students in the school. It begins in the auditorium, then it transitions quickly to one of the classrooms. This was played on some of the major news networks, but it is disturbing. I'm going to preface that for you now in case you don't want to listen to what we're about to hear. But I think it's an important training tool to show you to have more clear understanding of what the situation is like without actually seeing it. All of the people that are depicted in this video or captured on film in this video survived the incident, but we're going to hear the sounds of gunfire. We're going to hear the sounds of people being shot and probably being killed. I just want to preface it before we watch it, and then we'll talk about some of the lessons learned. It's going to go from the auditorium to the classroom. You're going to hear a very distant pop. It doesn't sound like gunfire. It's a gun firing down the hallway in the opposite direction. Then quickly it gets down to outside the classroom door. We're going to hear a very elevated sound of that gunfire, and we're going to hear the children screaming and cursing. Watch what the children are doing, and we'll talk about it after the video plays.
So right now we're in a school. An active shooter. It's not a drill.
Holy shit! Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh my god!
To me, it's a very emotional video. Every time I watch it, it's like a gut punch, literally, and I don't say that lightly. But I see this as an important training tool for us to really understand what this or a violent incident involving gunfire explosions would be like. They were calm, they were on their Snapchat, they were videoing it, they were putting in, they were typing in what's going on in their school, that our effing school is being shot up when it was far away, and you heard that distant pop. When it gets outside the door, it sounds like a cannon. The sound of a semi-automatic rifle, a shotgun, or even a handgun in an enclosed space without any hearing protection will literally sound like a cannon firing next to you, or a bolt of lightning striking the ground. That alone can be debilitating. Then you layer that with the soundtrack of screams and people being shot and people panicking. Hard to operate in those conditions. Then you also have the sight of the gunpowder and the smoke that's drifting through that locked door in the classroom. All of that can be a sensory overload. That's the shock I'm talking about. If you don't have that survivor's mindset, if you don't have a very basic plan of where to go in your rooms or where to escape from or how to sound the alarm, this is not the time to figure it out. My invitation to all of you now is to become kings and queens of your castle. Know all of those aspects that I've already discussed as far as how do I sound the alarm, what A, B, and C routes do I take to get out, what are my alternatives to take shelter in, and what are the most ideal places to do that. And so that's your workplaces. What do we recommend when you go out into the world? A greater situational awareness. When I go into a movie theater, when I go into a concert hall with my family, the first thing I do is I look around and I find my option A to get out, my option B to get out, my option C to get out. I look for a place that I might need to, if I need to take shelter, is there a place for me to take shelter? Where is the most appropriate place in this new space that I'm in to do that? If I'm with my young children, I communicate those things to them. I don't get into gory details about why. I just say, in an emergency, before the show starts tonight, before the lights go down and we start watching the play on Broadway or the movie in our local movie theater, if there's any emergency and we need to go, we're going to use that door, or that door. Sometimes I physically walk them down to the front of the screen and I show them physically the door. Because what I find is that you always be that illuminated emergency exit sign, but the door's not always there. It's not always right underneath. Sometimes it's behind a curtain, or down a stair, or around an alcove. I physically show them places to go. Why do I do that? Because under great levels of stress, people can't find those doors. People can't come up with those basic plans. That's why we drive home this point of survivor's mindset and a very simplistic plan. Greater situational awareness to the places we go, and communicate those basic plans with your loved ones. Looking at the run, hide, fight of this now, if we're going to use any one of those options, it's also important to understand it doesn't have to happen in that order. We say run, hide, fight because it's easy to remember. But you might hide first and take shelter, and then run. Or you might have to fight the attacker, maybe not win that fight, but get away, and then run and then hide. You understand the basic principles of this, though. What we hope to do is give you plays for your playbook, that if you're going to take action, we want to give you examples of how to do that. So again, I can't emphasize enough the need for predetermining multiple evacuation routes. One of the examples that I use to demonstrate the need for this is just looking at nightclub fires in the United States. If any of you have ever looked at them, most of the nightclub fires that we have that result in fatalities, those places meet fire codes. Some don't, most do. And where they almost always show a diagram of where victims are found after the fact. They put a diagram of the building and they show the X's where people succumb to the lack of oxygen or to the smoke or to the flames. But what do people remember in crisis, in the dark, when something unexpected happens? Where do they go? They go to the door that they came in. And even if that's a small percentage of people that have that subconscious or that unconscious muscle memory of, okay, something bad's happening, I got to go to the door that I came in. If you're confused and you're not sure of what to do and you didn't predetermine your exits, what might you do? Follow them. We have stampedes. That's why people bottleneck at those doors. They're climbing and clawing over each other. Meanwhile, anybody that had the wherewithal or the ability to locate those emergency exits, stage left, stage right, or behind the stage, pop open the door, step out into fresh air, and have survived the incident. That's important, and again, not just for active shooter, for any emergency situation that we'll ever be faced with. When we go into a place of mass gathering, I'm suggesting to you that we need to start doing those things. It can be helpful in all of those circumstances. We don't have to dwell on this and the reality of what this is, but we can be more aware and better prepared. Once we get out in a true mass shooting, we're recommending that people don't leave by car. You can, it's not illegal, but what we find is that a couple of things. Number one, attackers, we haven't seen them chase individuals out of a site and into the woods or into residential areas and just focus on one. They tend to stay on target. Someday they may not, but they tend to stay on target. What we do know is that when people flee en masse, accidents happen. And I'm not talking about just the injury from the accident. What happens is it causes snarls of traffic. People abandon their cars, leave them. We end up having people parking on sidewalks, on grass, everywhere, and I physically can't get my police cars into the scene. I can't get ambulances in behind them. I can't get ambulances back out to those hospitals. What we see at places like Orlando and Las Vegas, in those true mass shooting occurrences, people cannot get out, so they pick up victims, they throw them over their shoulder, or they grab them by the ankles and the wrists. They physically carry them past these traffic barriers that are created by people trying to get out or get in, and they throw them into personal vehicles to transport them to hospitals. That is not the recommended way to go to a hospital. So we recommend leave the cars behind. If you get into the woods, just keep going and keep going and keep going until it's quiet. If you get into a residential area, sound the alarm. There's a man with a gun or a woman there's a person with a gun coming behind me, get back into your houses. Maybe you get into the house with them. Maybe you keep going, but just keep going. If you get into another commercial building, sound the alarm, let security know, take shelter within, or keep going. But get out, get off the scene, and keep moving. If I am going to move, my determination is that my best choice is to get out of here, and I have an opportunity to do so, I want you to do it in a certain way. And I talk to audiences about target profiles. And it's important that you understand that initially when this is happening, and we've seen it before on film, people stand frozen like statues in shock before they can get their brain moving. Standing like this is the worst possible thing that you can do. I am large. I am not mobile. I am the easiest target to hit. So we plant in people's minds, you need to get down. You need to take a percentage off of your target profile, get small. If I can take 20% off, that's great. If I can take 50% off, even better if I'm able to get into a full crouch. What that means to the gunman is that if they're 30 yards away from me, a fraction of an inch of a trigger pull variation at the barrel translates to 3, 4, 5, 6 inches 30 yards down range. If I'm down like this, that might mean that he just missed me. Getting down and low is a survival strategy. It doesn't end there, though. You can't have a false sense of security when you get down and get low. You need to get moving, hopefully to one of those predetermined areas. Motion adds an element of difficulty to the gunman to be able to hit you. So I get low and I get moving. Even at a walking pace is better than staying still. And then if I'm going to get low and I'm going to be moving to my predetermined exit point or shelter point, I want to move strategically. Does anybody want to take a stab at what moving strategically means? How would I move strategically? Move to cover, vary your speed, your distances, zigzag, all of those things. So if I'm moving through an open space, I don't want the gunman to be able to line me up. I want to move in a zigzag pattern. I want to vary it up. I want to stay low. I want to move from object to object to object, from chair and table to the podium, to a pillar, to a door jamb, to the outside, to a tree, to a car, to bushes, to a house. It doesn't matter. I want objects between me and the gunman. Even if it's something that the bullet will pass right through or right through, I don't care. I want to get behind something to throw them off from being able to target me accurately. Yes, the gunman is going to have a shotgun that sprays pellets sometimes, or a semi-automatic or an automatic rifle that is spraying bullets. But they will not target us all as effectively if we simply all get down, get moving, and move strategically. More of us will live or not be injured if we all simply do that alone. The alternative is what? Freeze in place, succumb to shock, get down low, but have a false sense of security and succumb to panic at that point and freeze in place. What we've seen from active shooters is that they show little or no remorse. They intend for people to do that reaction. They plan on it. And they'll go from person to person, elderly, infant, middle-aged, doesn't matter, and systematically shoot them and then reshoot them. That's what we've seen. That's the reality of an active shooter situation. So get low, get moving, hopefully to a predetermined place, and move strategically. I'm going to switch gears for a second, and I want to show you a group of people that were victims in Las Vegas. This is, again, survivor cell phone footage from within the crowd that was being targeted by the gunman. To set the stage of what's happening here, for those of you that don't remember all of the details, the gunman, October 2017, takes up residency on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Casino Hotel, where he's a high-stakes gambler. I was there for several days. Over the course of those days, he uses it to pre-position his weapons and ammunition. He brings up dozens of long rifles. He brings up 4,000 rounds of ammunition or bullets. He loads those bullets into high-capacity magazines so he doesn't have to go through time-consuming reloads. He did his trajectory calculations from the window on the 32nd floor, several hundred yards away, to an open parking lot where a country music festival was planning to be had. On the night of the country music festival, over 20,000 people were in this parking lot that was converted into a concert venue. So that's what we're looking at here. The gunman opens fire first with a couple of small bursts to check his trajectories and possibly to ignite fuel tanks in the airport that was close by that didn't actually ignite. And then he goes into more lengthy, rapid-fire bursts of gunfire. He shoots for about 12 minutes in total, from the first bullet to the last. He takes his own life about 12 minutes after he initiates the attack. He did several things to slow down police response, which I won't get into today. But the police breached the door with explosive devices about an hour after he started. So he took his own life, and he took his own life after expending only 25% of his ammunition. As bad as it was, and this was the worst shooting in United States history, it could have been so much worse. But let's take a moment and look at how the crowd is responding. I'll tell you this, we're going to look at the the center of where these people are congregated, and there was things happening on the outer periphery that is a little bit different, but let's see how they're responding. We're going to watch about 2 minutes of live footage that was recorded live at the time, and let's look at what they do and how they respond. The lights are on in the venue, the country music act is off stage, they know something is wrong, and they know a general direction. You'll hear people yelling, "Get down, stay down," periodically. They don't realize they're the target. Should we get out of here? Stay down, get down. Very disturbing. There's a point where most audiences laugh when we see the person that's drinking and giving the finger to the gunman. That's not a recommended survival strategy, I'll tell you that. I laughed a little bit when I first saw this, and I'm like, my goodness, this could be me or my friends, and I try to look at it from what are the learning takeaways from this? What can I learn from this that make myself or the public more safe? And it's this. Did these people have a plan before going in there? Did they discuss either internally or amongst their friends what happens if there's an emergency? Did they even consider it before going into this gathering? No. I'm suggesting that we need to start doing that. Just take a moment. It's not comfortable. It is uncomfortable to do it. Take 60 seconds of your time. Look for your emergency exits. Think about if anything bad happens here at all tonight, which way would I go? And if you're with your loved ones, you communicate that to them in advance. What were they doing, if anything, that was a survival strategy? Crouching down. They got down, right? And that's a good first thing. It's better than standing tall and straight. They made themselves small. And then what you were dealing with is well-intentioned people that were exposed to gunfire, trying to give good recommendations, and they're saying, get down, stay down, because it makes sense. When bullets are flying overhead, you get low. Great. But it shouldn't end there. I'm out in the open. I'm exposed. I'm surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands of people. I don't know exactly where the threat is, but they knew a general direction. They're all looking at the Mandalay Bay, pointing at the Mandalay Bay, filming the Mandalay Bay. They knew a direction. They didn't consider that from several hundred yards away on the 32nd floor, a person is armed with an automatic rifle is firing into the crowd. But they didn't have a plan. Get down, get moving to a place of shelter or a place of emergency exit. Know those places in advance. Communicate it to the loved ones and the people that are around you. Those are life-saving measures. Don't rely on a crowd mentality or a crowd response. Frequently, it will be wrong. You don't want to give yourself up to the decision of the group, right? Go in there with a plan yourself. Be a leader yourself. There were other people on the periphery and other videos that we have where people said, let's get going. This is going to turn into a stampede. And those people were all able to get off of the scene of that open parking lot. But this is a very real possibility if we don't consider having a plan in advance. Moving to the hide now. And we're going to look at a school situation in Parkland, Florida. I'm going to read to you a quote from one of the students that took shelter after the shooting took place. And he says, "It was very confusing. Nobody really knew what was going on. We huddled in a room listening to terrifying noises we couldn't quite identify and spent an hour plagued by uncontrolled anxiety, waiting for somebody to come in and shoot us or come in and tell us everything was going to be okay. Number one, awful feeling. Number two, you might ask yourself, why did it take so long? This is a large school, thousands of kids in this incident. In any large buildings where we have all of those people, we don't just evacuate en masse. It's dangerous. We don't always know if it's one gunman or if they have left explosive devices or arson devices behind. We systematically evacuate the building. We do it expeditiously but systematically. But I don't want anybody sitting in any room any day waiting to be rescued or to be killed. I want you involved. I want you engaged. I want you constantly thinking about what I can do to improve my situation. So what might those things be? I've already told you that a locking door has never been broken down or breached in 220 active shooter incidents. Someday that statistic's going to go out the window. Someday a gunman is going to get through a locked door. I don't want to rely simply on that locked door. It is a survival mechanism and tactic to get behind it and lock it, but I don't want to rely solely on that. Before we lock doors, we got to clear out the spaces. I don't want to run into a room in a panic and just save myself and let everybody else be in proximity to that gunman. I want to get everybody inside. So what teachers are trained to do is they clear the hallways, they clear the bathrooms, and all the spaces around their classes. For us, or for anybody else that's not in a school, that means alerting people. Something is going on. I'm afraid for my life. I'm going to close and lock this door. Get in here or get out. But once I lock this door, it's not getting open. Come inside or get out. So now I lock my door. Now I'm going to consider barricading the door. And I say consider because there's not one simplistic answer. If you don't know where the gunman is, do I want to block my one door to get out of this room? Not necessarily. What if they're outside and they're shooting through the windows? I'm going to need the door that I just locked. But if I determine that the gunman is inside my building, I am not going to rely on my locked door. At the soonest, safest possible time, I am going to put heavy equipment in front of it. I am going to barricade that door. And I'm going to take measures to do that. So what does that look like? Here's an example. This is a picture from Ocala, Florida, about a week after the Parkland, Florida shooting. There was another isolated shooting in a school in Florida. Down the hall from where the shooting took place, this is what a teacher and his students did in the wake of that other shooting to make themselves safer. They built a barricade around the door. That's the picture enlarged. They put every piece of equipment in the room in front of it. That's the door back there. That is a life-saving measure. That is chewing up the attacker's clock. That is building a ballistic barrier between me and the gunman. If they set off an explosion or they shoot into that pile, probably not going to get to me on the other side of it. That is a life-saving measure. But it doesn't end there. Now I've determined that the gunman's inside. I've locked the door. I've barricaded the door. Now I'm waiting for the cavalry to arrive. But what can I be doing myself to increase my survivability? I'm going to now try to quiet everybody down. Alert them. Inform them. We have to be quiet. Don't draw the gunman's attention. Stop screaming. Stop crying. Silence your phones or turn them off. We know that in several instances, gunmen have been alerted by vibrating phones of people taking refuge in closets or bathrooms where they've been attacked because their phones alerted to their location. So silence it down if you can. We're not always going to be totally quiet, but we want to not unnecessarily draw the gunman's attention. If I have people that are wounded, and I'm talking about severely wounded, life-threatening bleeds, I need to treat those wounds because we might be in this shelter for several minutes. So if somebody is gushing blood and you think it's life-threatening, whether it's you or another person in your space, treat the wound. Everybody pretty much understands direct pressure, but what the national protocol is now recommending is pack the wound with cloth. Clean cloth if you have it, dirty cloth if you don't. You can use the victim's socks, the victim's shirt, your socks, your shirt. Take any cloth available, pack the wound tight, put direct pressure on top of it. If it's you, self-treat and hang in there and have your survivor's mindset. If it's somebody else, tell them what exactly to do. Make sure it's being done. Put them in a safe corner away from the doorway and instruct them not to take pressure off before we get to the hospital. That's rendering aid. Now, I've done that. Nobody's immediately dying in my room or my space. I want to arm myself. If I have to fight, if the gunman gets through my locked door, fights their way through my barricade, gets into my space, I want an option. It's going to help keep me out of panic to plan for this, and it's going to give me opportunity to think about ways to be more aggressive or to be more effective if I have to defend myself. Would I rather claw at a person with my bare hands or with a key between my knuckles? Probably a key between my knuckles, if that's all that you can bring to bear. Or a pen in my hand as a stabbing instrument. If I'm strong enough and if I'm able, I'm going to look for a blunt instrument or something that I can fashion into a weapon. It might be a flagpole that I break in half and use as a striking instrument, or a spear, or a chair if it's heavy enough and I can use it as a blunt instrument, or a metal fire extinguisher that I can spray them in the face like we saw in the film and then use it as a striking tool. Whatever it is, let's get ready to rock. And if it's just me, I'm going to arm myself. If it's others, I'm going to instruct them what to do. If I'm incapable because I'm wounded, I've been trained. I can still tell people what to do. Lock the door, barricade the door, drag me into this corner over here, help me pack my wound, I'm going to keep pressure on it. You guys turn over tables and chairs and build a little barrier. Get a weapon. If that person gets in this room, we need to fight. Come up with a very simplistic plan. If it's just me, I'm going to stand offset from the door, and as soon as I see the weapon, I'm going for the weapon to try to keep the barrel away from me. If it's me and another, I'm going to say, you're totally ready to go, you're going to get the feet. I'm going for the weapon. If it's three of us, you're going for the head, ma'am, you're going for the legs, I'm going for the weapon. It sounds, let me stop for a second. Is this crazy? Is it crazy? Yes, totally insane. This is totally insane. The whole thing that we're doing today is totally insane. It's crazy to me that there's a video titled Surviving an Active Shooter that was made that has over 1 million views and several others with other several million views. That the police department gives training about surviving an active shooter. But what is the alternative? We freeze, we don't act, we don't take action, maybe we don't go home to our loved ones. So, as crazy as it is, we're trying to give you basic survival strategies. And it begins with having plays in your playbook, and this is part of that. So arm yourself, be ready to go, have a very basic, brutal, simplistic plan, convey it to others so that you'll be more effective in what you're doing. If I have people that are wounded or young or elderly that can't fight, can they throw? Probably. I'm going to give them every loose object in that room. I'm going to put them behind some tables and chairs that I flipped over as a barrier. And I'm going to say, if that door opens up, throw everything you can at it. I'm going to be on the other side, and I'm going for the gunman. I need a distraction while I'm fighting him. I want to make myself as effective as possible. If I don't think about it in advance, I may not do it. It doesn't end there. Now I've got everything buttoned up, doors locked, barricaded, kids are out into the corner. I've got people treated for their wounds. I've got everybody armed and ready to roll. I might be 15 minutes into this event. Most of them would be over, some are not, so I want to stay in the game. What happens if this room that I just took shelter in becomes unusable? Becomes unusable because they set fire to the building, because explosive devices are now going off somewhere in the building, or bullets are spraying through the walls of the door and I feel like this is not the place to be. I want options. So if you're in a space that you're not familiar with, expand your tunnel vision, look for doors. Find out where those doors go, make sure they're secured against the gunman, or if they open up into an outer area, make a decision. Is that the right way to go? If I have no door, I'm looking for windows. This room, it's plain as day, there's windows everywhere, but sometimes they're not. If I have a window that's not in view of the gunman, I want to get it open so I don't have to fight with the window when it's time to go. If it's commercial glass, I will have to consider, do I need to break it now, maybe draw attention to myself by that noise, but give myself an out? You'll have to make these decisions. I can't tell you exactly what to do based on the thousands of variables that will be going on. But you need to be thinking about, how do I constantly improve my situation and how do I get out? If I take away your doors and windows, are you trapped in this room? Are you trapped? No, not necessarily. I'm going to look up. This room doesn't have one, but many public spaces do have drop ceilings. If I can't climb up to it, maybe I can build a structure that I can or somebody else can. I can put 2 tables together and another table on top, and maybe I can get some people up into that ceiling. Great place to hide on the sides of the walls. Or if this room becomes unusable, drop down into the next room and deal with whatever you have to deal with there. If I have no door, no window, no drop ceiling, am I trapped? No, not necessarily. If it's not cinder block, If it's sheetrock or particle board, I can break my way through. And this is good. Forget active shooter again. What if you're in a fire someday and you get into a room and you're trying to get away and you panic and you make the wrong decision and you get into a room that doesn't have a fire door? You can make a door through the wall. All of us, every single one of you in this room is capable of doing it. You take your foot, you do a mule kick into the wall, and you crack that sheetrock or particle board. If you're not strong enough to do that, you pick up an instrument and you crack it, or a chair and you crack it. You pull down the sheetrock on your side. It's only a ½ inch thick in most cases. And you expose the beams, about shoulder width apart, that are going to be metal or wood. Expose those beams. What did you just fashion? An emergency door. You can lean on the other side, put your weight on it, and pop into the next room. You made a door through a room that you might have thought that you were trapped in. This is a way to keep your brain thinking. Think about locking it down, getting people treated, arming yourself, and then what is my next move? Those are all things to stay engaged in the fight. If I do have to fight, if that is my option that I have, and I see somebody using deadly physical force in the act of killing others, not threatening, but actually killing others, anything goes. I can use any physical force necessary to bring that attack to an end. So anything goes. If you do choose that option, we want you to scream when you attack the gunman. Not as you're running towards them, but when you're on them. Initially, we want your most primal battle cry and scream in their face. Remember, these are first-time killers. You want to overload their senses like he or she overloaded yours. Get in their face, go for the weapon, and scream a battle cry. Maybe you make them fumble the trigger. Maybe they fumble the reload or drop the weapon that they're trying to transition to because you're holding on to one. Help overload them. Then we want you to immediately start screaming, help me, I've got him, help me. It does two potential things. Number one, draw other good Samaritans to the fight. I don't want a fair fight. I want unfair fight. I want 6-on-1, 10-on-1. Somebody that might be hiding nearby that I didn't even know was there might come to assist me. Somebody that was fearful and weren't willing to engage might engage because I've already done it. Help me, I've got him. The next important thing that does, it alerts law enforcement that a good Samaritan is involved in the fight. Because we're going into a situation where police officers are afraid, they've trained for it, but they've probably never been exposed to it. They're going to be passing victims. They're going to be looking for a shooter that's probably going to look and dress just like you, like the community that's affected. And they're going to have to make a split-second decision. You want to make sure they know a good Samaritan is in the fight, so they don't incorrectly or erroneously or tragically shoot you. Once we stop or disarm the gunman, I don't care what their reaction is. I don't care if they turn into a sobbing mess. Knock them to the ground, make them incapacitated, either unconscious or unable to access their hands. Their hands are deadly. We know that they frequently bring more than one weapon. Don't be taken off guard. Treat them like a deadly threat. Unconscious or unable to utilize their hands. And then I am going to, in that 2% chance that there is another, I don't want to just wait. I'm not going to relax until I have officers in the room with me. So that's the run, hide, fight portion of it. And what we also like to point out is some versatile tools. And we like these tools because they're available in just about every building that we'll ever go in the United States. Fire extinguishers to begin with. Fire code dictates that they're going to be throughout whatever buildings that we go in. If you have the opportunity to grab one and bring it into your shelter space or grab one as you egress, do so. They're great tools as a distraction weapon, as we saw in the video where you spray the gunman, or as a blunt instrument to strike them from behind or in the front if that's the only opportunity that you have. Also, it's made out of metal and it's a cylinder. Better to have something with ballistic quality in front of my vitals as I'm moving through spaces than having nothing. Right? It's a good, useful tool, and they're available everywhere. Consider grabbing them. The next thing is wires. They're available in every room that we'll go into, and there's electrical cords everywhere. Grab them. Use them. Use them to tie off doors. In this slide, they're looking at a gentleman using a belt. Not everybody has a belt, and I like wires better than belts because they're longer. They're just as strong. They're easier to tie. They're available in every room. And what they're showing here on the left is that he's wrapped his belt and tied it around the hinge on that door. Those old-style hinges in auditoriums or large rooms, to have that door open, the hinge has to expand. If I tie the hinge shut, the door doesn't open. Right? Could they rip it off the assembly? Yes, they could. but you're chewing up the attacker's clock, maybe giving law enforcement the critical time to turn the corner and end it before they get in. I might save my own life, or I might save somebody else in that space. The next thing that they're showing is maybe you're in a room someday and you jump into a room and you find that you don't have the key or you don't have the lock. You can't lock that door for some reason. Get a wire, a cord, tie it around the handle, tie it to something heavy. In lack of not having something heavy, wrap it around your waist. Lay down on it, almost like a mountain climber. Put all of your body weight on the door, forcing the gunman to have to physically bicep curl the door open with all of your weight on it. Is it going to ensure your survival? No, but these are plays for your playbook to give you an increased survivability if you're ever faced with a deadly incident like this. If we don't pre-consider how we might act, you might not do it. So we want to plant these seeds. Give you plays for your playbook. Give you options. You get out, or as you're egressing out of a scene, it's still a very dangerous situation. Consider that dozens, if not hundreds, of law enforcement agents are going to be descending from different jurisdictions. Whenever one of these things happen, everybody with a gun tries to go in to bring it to an end. You're trying to get out of that scene as they're racing in. You need to make yourself not a threat. The only way to do that is this: hands up, fingers wide. You're going to look like the attacker, so we need to make sure you're not going to kill us in the moment that we're passing by you. Hands up, fingers wide. You can't kill me in that moment. You may very well be the attacker escaping with everybody else, but as long as the killing has stopped, that's okay. We will go get you later. We want you to survive and not be erroneously shot by a member of law enforcement or a good Samaritan. Hands up, fingers wide. Do not talk to them. Don't grab at them. Don't beg them to pull you out of there if you're bleeding. Have your survivor's mindset. Treat your wound. Try to get out as best you can. Let those initial wave of officers that are going in to bring that active shooter to an end, let them go by you. If they speak to you, listen to them. If they ask you a question, certainly answer them. But don't engage them yourselves. Just get out. You can get out about 50 yards outside of any attack scene. There's going to be dozens more officers arriving, coming up with a more comprehensive plan. Their guns will be holstered. That's when you give vital information. That's when you say, I know the shooter, it's my coworker, it's Detective Cliff Lent. He's dressed in a black short-sleeve polo and beige pants. Or, I've got 20 people in the conference room, several are wounded, we need to get to them now. That's when you give that type of information. The other thing is accurate reporting and why it's so essential. Every single time we have an active shooter situation, a true active shooter situation, 98% of the time it's one gunman. 100% of the time we get erroneous reports of multiple gunmen. That is problematic for a number of reasons. Number one, if the gunman is on the north side of the building and you erroneously report the gunman on the south side, you've just split our resources in half. I've taken a team of people that are going to address the gunman and I split them and I go to the south side. If I get east and west, now I've quartered us gunmen and they erroneously report it. We're trying to educate people. Only report what you know. Don't just guess at things, because if you split our resources, that's potentially deadly to you or to others that are trying to survive the incident inside. Also, if you report me as the gunman erroneously, and that goes out over the radio, male, white, middle-aged, black polo, short sleeve, tan pants, when officers see me, after they've just witnessed what's going on inside that scene, they may very well shoot, right? Lockout and lockdown procedures. In our schools, they're very different entities than from most of our buildings. Any building would be better off to keep the attacker or the gunman outside the building. If you have the potential or the availability to sound the alarm, get outer doors locked, and keep the attacker outside, much better than having to deal with an attacker that gets into our buildings. In schools, they're structured where there are hundreds of shelter rooms throughout that building. Literally locking doors in every one of the classrooms and spaces that have been pre-designated for students and faculty and staff to take shelter. That buys time, a significant amount of time. And when we're talking about protecting the majority, the go-to option is obviously begin with a lockout. If the gunman is able to get in and breach through our lockout, or if they begin inside the facility where the attack occurs because it's an insider threat, we go into a lockdown. Again, remembering that frequently we don't know exactly where the attacker is. what capabilities they're bringing to bear, what weapons they're using. And to simply go first to a run option would potentially flood hallways or courtyards or parking lots with people that could readily become victims. So the recommended first strategy is obviously lock out. Then we go to the lockdown, a protective posture to buy time, chewing up the attacker's clock, making them deal with different locked doors throughout the facility, giving law enforcement a time to arrive. If then I need to make a decision, whether it's my run, hide, or fight in more constructive ways, I can do it as I've bought myself some time and I can reconsider or consider the best option for me, so I don't make a panicked response putting me, members of the faculty, or other students in greater jeopardy than had we not done that. When we go to schools, and we've done both teachers and faculty, and what we recommend is that we reach every adult in the building, from lunch aides to custodians to bus drivers, so that all adults that are decision makers are going to be on the same sheet of music, and that they all have a level of awareness in their spaces where this could happen. Having said that, we also go to PTA organizations and we talk to students. And our first best recommendation is adhere to that lockout and lockdown procedure. It will buy time. Not everybody's going to have all of the information, like when we watch a video where it's clear as day what's going on. You're not going to know inside, are they outside or are they inside? If I just simply give my children, and I talk to you like I talk to my kids, if I told them one thing to do, it could very well be wrong in the set of circumstances that they face. So buy some time. We know that to get that time and distance between us and the gunman is important. That is our main focal point when we talk to schools. Once you do that, we want people thinking about increasing their survivability, improving their chances, and think and assess constantly about what it is to do. If I hear the gunman on the other side of the building and I have a window here to the parking lot or to the woods, at that point, when I see law enforcement there, I can egress periodic, I can send people out, or, individually, and making sure that they're under the cover of police protection. That would be the time to do it, rather than just make a panic choice and stick to one plan of action. You need to have plays in your playbook. You're going to need to make decisions. They're not always going to be right, but you want to make the best decision that you can with the limited information that you have available. I've heard, so the question is on some videos and different things, some people recommend playing dead to evade the shooter. I'll say this, a couple of things. It is a strategy. It is a strategy that some people, and God bless them truly, that they have lived through these things. But what I see is this: to successfully play dead with a shooter that is considering that people are playing dead, when they show no remorse and they're shooting people repeatedly, the grim reality of successfully playing dead means a lot of people had to die around you to pull it off. A lot. And it might not be you. Is it an option? Yeah, that's an option. That's the last play in my playbook. If I can't move and I'm wounded and I'm surrounded by victims and the gunman's in my space and I can't get up, I'm going to play dead. However, that is my last option. I don't want to be put into that position, because what we see is that they shoot, they leave a space, they look for other victims. When they don't find those victims, they come back into the spaces that they had access to and they reshoot. Have people done it? Yes, they have. Can it work? Yes, it can. Last play in my playbook. In summary, people have a better chance of surviving a crisis when they take quick, meaningful action. They don't wait or rely on being told what to do. Challenge yourself to have a plan. Communicate that plan with your families. If others are confused, panicked, or suffering from shock, we want to be able to say to them, it's okay. We are going to make it. Follow me. Thank you on behalf of the Suffolk County Police Department.